last video, I went over the difficulties we faced during writing, and so now I will be going over the difficulties we face during filming, which compared to the writing part was not as bad, but was still pretty bad. I would only say that I didn't face the same emotional turmoils that I did while writing. More so, it was a lot of just waiting for people to be available. So it ultimately was not as bad as the writing part, but still had its troubles. So we were initially meant to begin filming in September. So the original film date was supposed to be from September to December, but we weren't able to film in September for a variety of reasons, but one of them was the weather conditions we faced in September because it was unbelievably hot the entire month. And most of our characters wear sweaters. My characters wearing a cardigan in for the majority of the movie, so having to film in that, I just did not want to put my actors through that, and I would just feel really bad to see them like hot because I wanted to film a movie. So I was like, you know what, let's push it back. It's a bit colder. We'll give it like a shot for January if we have to. And that was the plan. However, things did not go all according to plan. We did begin filming on October 7th. We filmed the opening scene, which for a while was one of the main scenes I had to show for points of reference towards other people. But the filming had just begun, and already, already we were kind of just realizing and just how much we had ahead of us because filming was at the time we were using an old camera that I had, but that old camera presented quite a bit of issues in that it had some dead pixels, so it just wasn't the best, but it was also big and bulky. But another problem that would come to be foreseen was we were mostly a two-man crew because Nunta or Margot typically wasn't available that much compared to Krishna. And so we went in as a two-man team. So it's either he's on camera or I'm on camera. I believe that you can tell who's filming based on the scene. But I did direct Krishna in how he should film stuff. I kind of told him that since we're so limited on crews, I told him that try to imagine it as a frame for a picture book kind of deal because picture books are very still in their imagery because the picture book not moving. So I told him to imagine that type like the stillness of a picture book because that's the majority of how this film is going to be shot. I think that he did a very good job, better than me to be honest. I think I kind of dropped the ball when it comes to filming, but that happened in October, and it wouldn't be a while before he would be available to film again. And the thing is, like, I couldn't get mad at my cast because they were doing it for free, so I couldn't, you know, I didn't want to pressure them because that would just lower morale if I was getting furious at them for not being always available. Because, you know, at the end of the day, I wasn't able to pay them, so all of it was just of the kindness of the heart. So I did try to be as patient as possible, but there would be times where I was just like, I want to film, but obviously they weren't available all the time. And we kind of got into the motions a bit. However, October, also in October, that's when I first shot was Noontime, which looking back on it, I wish that I had shot more with Noontime because I think I could have given her character a much stronger arc. And that was just in October, which was very wild to think of. And so November comes around, and we really had not shot that much. I think in total we had about 15 minutes of the film recording, which was pretty low by that month, like by November. Having 15 minutes was kind of a bad sign. But, you know, getting Krishna to record was kind of difficult. He was a lot more available, but getting Noonta to record was the real difficult part because she's so busy with school, you know. So we had to plan around her schedule, and yeah. So imagine two busy people and trying to schedule one that's really busy. We were able to do it luckily at one point. We were able to do it, so we got Noonta Krishna to record, and we had some funny scenes. I will admit that. I definitely laughed at a lot to the scenes we recorded, and I'll tell you a little funny story. I don't know why Nunta decides to do this, but she kind of puts on the American national anthem, and she's always singing it, and I just thought it was so funny. It just out of nowhere field. But this was also one of the first. This was actually my first time directing two people because, again, for the most part, I was always a solo artist. I never had to worry about two people. So this was my first time kind of directing them how to deliver their lines, how to not sound so robotic. But also, I believe, to be honest, I believe that a lot of it just came because Krishna was a shockingly talented actor, and Nunta was also very, very much talented too. Just not me. So we were able to get a lot done that day, and I just felt I kind of came out feeling a lot more confident than usual. I was just like, oh, that actually is a good amount of scenes. Perhaps it won't be that difficult. And then things start to slow down again. So we start to lose momentum halfway through November. There was also something else. I also had to kind of pace out our filming dates because once again, in the last video, I stated that I wasn't finished scripting, and there was at one point in time where we were actually close to catching up to the script, and we would have run out of scenes to film. And so we had two main obstacles. We had my solo scenes that I still had to record, and we had the script which still needs to be finished. And then we had the scheduling issues because they were all busy. So I guess that's three. So it ultimately just started to cause a loss of momentum. And so I just kind of left there wondering what to do. I was like, I don't know what to do anymore. Of course, I just kept writing, but given my personal issues at the time, I was out of it, to be honest. And at one point, even Krishna was out of it. I was like, I don't know really if this film is gonna even see anything. When December came around, it should have been in the initial plan the end of filming, but as you can see, things did not go according to plan. And what ended up happening was December obviously meant exams, holidays to celebrate, and it just led to my actors not. It just led to my already time constricted actors becoming less available. And then to top it all off, we gotta keep in mind that the majority of the film was filmed at a park, and they tend to close at sundown. So we lost a lot of our sets very early on, too, because 5 p.m. it's already dark, and you just wasn't a lot to do anymore. I'm just like, I don't know, really. I'm not sure what the hell to do. I felt so trapped. But I also knew a lot of it was my fault because I went in there not finishing my script like I should have. I did not plan the best schedule like I should have. And I just felt so off by myself. And then the worst part was I just had no motivation to do my solo scenes. And it just seemed like filming was never going to be done. It all just felt so hopeless at one point. And so December came around and it went by. But something did happen in December. I finally finished the storyboards, meaning that I could finally finish the script. But December was also a very turbulent month for me. I remember for a little bit I left my house for a bit. It was only for like a few days, but it really kind of just rejuvenated me because up until that point, my situations at home got very bad, and I just started to just kill any form of motivation I had. I had to return eventually because I work, so I work and I didn't have my car with me. But oh well. But one other thing is that in this house I was staying at, I had nothing to do, to be honest. I had like literally nothing to do. I was bored out of my mind most of the time. Or at least I would have been if I didn't have the storyboards to work on. Yeah, man, I still think about it because I remember just waking up at that person's house and just honestly just get to writing. I think what's funny though is I really lost my sense of time because there was no windows because I was staying in a basement. So I would wake up and I had no idea what time it was. And it doesn't help that I sometimes wake up randomly when I'm sleeping and I'll be like, oh man, is it the afternoon? Nope. It was 4 a.m. But that part I was able to finish the storyboard, so script could finally be wrapped. So now in January, now that everything was fully finished with the script, I knew that I had to bite the bullet, start filming my solo scenes. And these were my least favorite scenes to film because it was only difficult with one person. I mean, it was only difficult with two people. So now we had only one person, which was me. But most namely, I was still struggling a lot with my personal issues. So I just felt just it felt like such a monumental task to do. And it's literally just filming my own movie. While it felt like I was just pushing myself to do something. It felt more like a chore because I was just like out of it, to be honest. All these issues I faced really really just made me not want to continue filming. But I pushed forward and I wish I could say it got easier, but it really didn't. Another thing was, the solo scene kind of started to get repetitive because, I was still new to writing and I was still new to writing an actual film, so I kind of made some scripting mistakes, having the character kind of repeat himself in a way. I would say the most significant thing that happened in January, besides me finishing up my solo scenes, was um, well, I didn't finish them all up, but I finished the majority of them. There was some that had to be picked up, but we also finished the closing scene of the movie, which was supposed to be a road trip. And I remember that day very fondly because me and Krishna, we kind of just drove around and filmed the snowy landscape of Ohio, filmed the bridge, and it was a very enjoyable day. I remember we ate Wendy's afterwards, which was also very enjoyable. Or was it before? One of those two. And I'll never forget that day. It really rejuvenated me again to go into February. So much for finishing up in December. We're now in February. But in February, we locked in, at least me and Krishna, we locked in. We decided that we wanted to finish all the forest scenes with me and him. And we did. But, you know, this everything went smoothly. I will not deny that. Like, everything went smoothly. But the weather was so cold. And I know it sounds like, oh, Captain Obvious. But it was freezing. Like, I mean, okay, I'm someone that can handle cold weather relatively good, but even I was starting to freeze. And then on top of that, one of the scenes got ruined because it was freaking windy as hell too. So it just ruined the sound quality. But we did lock in, and we did finish practically all the scenes we needed to do. But there were scenes that had Noonta in it that we could not finish. So we had to wait for her to be available. And as things showed, that won't be for some time. We just didn't know it yet. And so now in March, we really didn't have a lot to do because a lot of the scenes that took a lot of effort have finally been finished. But there was one scene, and it's the only deleted scene we have of the film that was shot in, I would say, October. And we did not like that scene whatsoever. And so we decided to re record it and replace it with a different scene. It was a scene of us just walking in the city. And I remember that day very fondly. I remember we just hung out, me and Krishna. I took him out to get some pizza. And then 9 o'clock hits, and I'm like, 9 o'clock? Or the parking should be free, let's go. And filming that was kind of it was fun, but it was also kind of annoying because since we were still a two-man crew, one of us would have to run back for the camera, pick it up, put it into position, run back to position, and it was just uh, quite the mess. But that day was very fun to experience. I remember me and him rode around in scooters afterwards for a little bit. Yeah. To be honest, April was truly the waiting game because I believe by the end of March I had finished all my solo scenes, so I really was just there waiting for Noonta to finally be available. So we waited and waited until finally she was. But all three of us went to that park. But the thing was, a lot of those scenes with me and Krishna were shot in um, winter and fall. So as you can imagine, it being very much in spring, it caused a lot of issues because the grass is now green, the leaves are green, and I remember I had to think, how am I going to do it to make it look like it's still fall? And I was like, we'll jump that hurdle when we get to it. I had to painstakingly not color grade. I had to painstakingly color grade that entire scene. I think what's funny is that in one of the scenes, the sketchbook the sketchbook cover was green, so it kind of flips around from being green to red. And I never noticed until I look back on it. Thank goodness none of us were wearing green. Otherwise, that would be I don't even know what I would do in that situation. And we were able to finish up the majority of our scenes, except for one, because we were busy and we had to leave. And this one last scene. So we were now nearing the end of April, and I remember this last scene. We all gathered up, and I remember Noon said she couldn't stop laughing while filming, and we had so many takes of it, of just her laughing, and it was so funny. But we just kept laughing, and I was able to just kind of just get like the normal across. I understand why she kept laughing because it was kind of silly. Because it was all silly, okay? We're not professional actors by all means, but we we tried along, and then before I knew it, that was it. We had finished all our scenes, and always such a surreal feeling. And that was the last time all three of us got together, film, and probably the last time all three of us will ever hang out with each other. Just because, we don't really have a reason to do so because we're adults now and, it's kind of just like a theme. And this brings me to my next point. I definitely have not made it a secret that I was going through a lot of personal issues around that time. My family relationships were falling apart and my romantic relationships were falling apart. And it would all just led to me just going through so much heartbreak and so much emotional pain that I've never fully recovered from. And yet, for some odd reason, I find myself missing those days when we would film, when we would, get together and film this movie. And I find that interesting. It was such a miserable part of my life. I miss filming with those three. Which is why I feel comfortable sharing this, you know. Krishna, if you're watching this is the first time you're probably hearing this, but here it is. To Krishna. Well, I'm not sure if we finished the movie. I hope we didn't. It was shocking to see that you stayed around after high school. Like sometimes I wonder if you were just born. Hey, I'm thankful for everything. Sometimes I feel like I did ask for you for too much. I enjoy hanging out with you and seeing what kind of random thing we did. And the fact that I even got my spark for art was because you believed in this film, and I felt like I finally had a chance to show it. So, thank you. I'm going to miss you. This person was not in the film, but they did also play a crucial role in many regards. And I haven't communicated with this person in quite a bit, and I don't think I ever can. But perhaps this would be a good way to get my feelings out towards them. 2A. On that day, I saw you walk down. We ate at McDonald's. Oh, how unreal it felt. A few weeks later, you replied to my story, saying you missed me and when could we hang out again? How could you miss me? Such an unlikable person, yet you wanted to see me again. I remember all our hangouts. This is in 2023, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, December. I loved our first sleepover like a dream. I wish I could have seen more of you. I felt awful. How could I? I felt awful. I feel like I could never provide you the same comfort the way you could to me. I'm going to miss you, and I hope someday you find someone better, maybe someone not so much. I love you, and I wish I could have seen you more. Goodbye. I know, I know I said this a million times to these two people, both Nunta and Krishna, but I could truly never thank them enough for participating in the film. Because it was my first time being able to show people my art, and I'm getting so emotional. But genuinely speaking, it's definitely one of the most unreal feelings I've ever had, and I hope that they can see me grow as an artist. So this one was a lot more upbeat. So thank you for watching. Check out my old channel and subscribe. Thank you.